All right, peace everyone. Hopefully everyone can see me and the stream is okay and the sound is okay. If at any point there's a problem with the sound, you can text me at 267-582-5724, or you can put something in the chat to allow for us to know so we can adjust the sound or do something. I usually use another program, live stream programming and TerraQ programming to do live streams, but I'm using YouTube because it's available, it's free, and a lot of our brothers and sisters are on YouTube as subscribers to different channels that our brothers and sisters are disseminating information in, and I wanted to be a part of that and reach the audience with some very rare information that is very applicable to their immediate economic circumstances. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Ali Muhammad. I'm the current head of the Aboriginal Republic of North America and the International Indigenous Society. We are an indigenous government that advocates autonomy for indigenous peoples all across the planet, here in America and specifically in Africa, and our goal is to share models and systems that deal in education, finance, health, law, and a number of other areas so that we can change our condition as a people. So tonight is a part two to how to start an indigenous business. We're doing a part two primarily to go over old information, and because last time our technology was a little bit off and the screen sharing did not flow well, so I want to make sure that that's done so when folk want to watch this particular video, they can go back and see all of the slides that they missed. If you watched it on live stream yesterday, you got the full lecture, and that will be up for about 72 hours, and we'll make a small DVD just to either give away or for a small contribution, give people so that they can get the basis. How we're doing business in the space that we're in is a part of a paradigm that we learned from what we call slavery. And the model is the same, the way that it's happening is the same. The only difference is we have more technology and a little bit more apparent freedom. But it's the same techniques. And there's very rare information that should be shared with our people so that they can make a deliberate effort to save resources for their families and to build and engage in owning the resources that they create or use to create something. All right, so that's what I specialize in. I specialize in a number of things, but resource management is a big part, and creation of ideas and how to protect those ideas is a big part, and none of that can be done without the discussion of your socio-political reality. And the discussion is not too advanced for anyone to understand. So tonight we want to cover a few things that will allow for us to make pretty good transition into that particular subject. All right, so let's see if we can get our screen share going and go to our slides. Give me a moment. All right. All right. So we're here to talk about business, which is a big discussion for those who may not be participating in it very well, or doing it very well. As you can see, we did this lecture last night, and we talked about the formation of tax-exempt entities or non-tax liable entities, trusts, LLCs, international development corporations, unincorporated associations, and a number of other businesses. If you are willing to start a business with us, we can get you your EIN certification in 72 hours. We will create the entity as an exempt entity. It will be formed under our indigenous government and tribal structure. And with that, you'll be able to do a number of things. So within 72 hours, you have your full EIN certification, and you will also have your affidavits and articles so that you can get them notarized and start doing what you're doing. The types of things that we want to advance to our people is things that protect their assets, all right? If you know how to open up a bank account that cannot be garnished, then you can protect resources. If you know how to remove property taxes and sales taxes based on the type of entities you form and how to interface them with businesses that are around you, you can save lots of money. All right? If you know how to protect your home and your properties and transfer them into the right vehicles to evade problems with property taxes, you're doing a good thing. If you know how to start a business and use your business credit instead of depending on Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion to give you a go, then that's a great thing. If you know how to get out of problems with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, then you're doing well. Most of our people don't know how to do those things. All right, so we are experts at doing those things, and we want to share that information with you. Most people who start an LLC or a business end up paying $500 to $600 to start the business. We can start your business for $100, have it up and running in 72 hours. If you are a national of the Aboriginal Republic of North America, we can do that for you for $50. So we'll give those contacts so people can get abreast to how we actually do that, and just stay abreast. Our biggest problem is that we're trusting in debt, and we don't know the difference between a debt and an asset. So we go to school, we get in debt. We get out of school, we get a house, we get in debt. We go finance a car, we get in debt. All right? We go get some credit cards, we get in debt. And we accumulate debt, and most of our life is made to pay off those debts without having the ability to resource network with others or with even ourselves so that we can become more functional. And this cycle is a socially induced cycle to give you the idea that you are successful. You go to college, you get in debt, you get a mortgage, you get in debt, you get a car, you get in debt, get some credit cards, you get in debt, and that is the American dream. And that's for people who can have good enough credit to get those things. There's a number of people who are in another bracket who can't go to college, can't get those things, and are still in debt. So we have different classifications, and all of it is in a severe ignorance of economics and a severe ignorance of socio-political remedy that can put you in a better economic footing. So the plantation psychology that formed the United States of America is still present today in the 21st century. And there's a few corporations that are running most of the operations, and they do that to the detriment of indigenous and non-indigenous people. When I say indigenous people, I'm talking about the people who you call African, Native Americans, other different indigenous people. When I talk about non-indigenous people, I'm talking about the people who gain just solely rights by having their children born here on this land who are from European nations. So they have just solely rights, which means they have rights to the soil because they were born here after their first descendants came here. But unlike you, you have just solely and just sanguinis, which means blood ties to the original inhabitants of the land, which allows for you to remedy the injuries that were perpetuated upon you by Europeans. And those particular remedies will save you lots of money and resources if you know how to own what you create through your political entities that you're a part of, indigenous political entities, and then make wiser cultural decisions about economics. All right? So those are the things that we're facing, and we want to show our people how to do those particular things. In order to do that, we need to understand the basics of civics and commerce. Civics in the sense of your aboriginal, contractual, and constitutional rights. All right? Commerce in the sense of understanding the note, security, and bond cycle of the United States of America, and know what is a contract and what is a note and an instrument, and what are your rights in either one, and how to protect yourself in either one. That is a big part of your success or your failure. All right? So in order to do this, we form local study groups. You can go to aboriginalnetwork.ning.com and you can learn about our law programs, economic programs, our health programs, our spiritual programs, and the entire curriculum of the Aboriginal University. That is what we're here to promote. All right? So tonight, we want to go into our discussion on what we laid out last night and what we talked about last time. Our focus is indigenous business setup. All right, see, So you have here one of our entities, Shi Amaru Tribal Government, and that is our communication address. And we can get an EIN like this in about 30 seconds. We can form it as a trust entity, a business entity, unincorporated association, whatever is necessary for the particular person. If you contact me at 267-582-5724, recommending either by text or by phone call that you need to start a business, or email me at amarushiali@gmail.com, we will send you your business application. You can email it back to us or fax it back to us, and we'll have you an EIN and a business set up in 72 hours. All right? We're going to talk about what types of businesses that you need to set up. But those are the contacts. You can form any type of entity that you want. Usually lawyers and others will charge you $500, $400, $600 or more dollars to do these processes. These processes are very simple, and we can do it without providing other extraneous social security data, etc., and form the entities as non-tax liable entities so that you can preserve your resources. All right, so this is what the indigenous business setup is all about. This is what this entire presentation is about. Whatever business that we're doing, if we as indigenous peoples, the first peoples of this land, are allowing the socio-political infrastructure of foreigners who came here onto this land to take our resources, we can never, never, absolutely, positively never make a change with our particular scenario. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said we needed a complete, radical redistribution of the economic resources. And he went to ask permission for those things. What we are saying is you don't have to ask permission. You can take control of your life right now. And you start by being an entrepreneur and knowing how to form the right entities and protect the properties and the things that you do have. So regardless of what type of entity that you have in the past, we can close that entity, reopen it properly with the proper EIN number, which will show in your individual master file, business master file with the IRS that is an exempt entity. And then you can proceed for the rest of your life not being harassed by these particular entities that are demanding that you pay because you signed up to pay. The Department of Treasury is a de jure arm of the executive branch that handles the commerce and currency of the United States of America and sets policy. The Internal Revenue Service is a debt collector that is contracted to the Department of Treasury. It will only come to you for and ask you for anything if you signed up through some type of instrument, W-4, W-9, etc. So our people don't know the remedy to those particular things, and this is why Wesley Snipes, Lauryn Hill, and other people are getting into problems, because they may be famous, but they do not know the law, nor do they know the policies economically to protect themselves, even though they have large amounts of wealth. We have the answer for that. The answer starts with your socio-political reality and your nationality and proceeding therefrom. So in order to get to that, you have to understand the basics of international law. International law is what we should be engaged in respect to the United States. In the same way that the PLO and the Palestinians are engaged in an international conflict with Israel, you're supposed to be engaged in an international operation with the United States of America and the United States in order to protect your indigenous rights. In the past, you had people who tried to advance those particular things who did not have all of the knowledge. Malcolm X tried to do it with the OAU, Organization of African Unity. He was setting the pace to attempt to get resources for us and have a political entity, but it was a business that was registered within the United States. We're telling you that you can start your businesses in your own indigenous jurisdiction with no problems, sealed, signed, and own the business 100%, and then move forward and interface with that particular entity internationally. International law is the law which regulates the intercourse of nations, the law of nations. The customary law which determines the rights and regulates the intercourse of independent states in peace and in war. Then you have public and private international law. Public, being the international law, is the body of rules which control the conduct of independent states in their relations with each other. Private international law is that branch of municipal law which determines before the courts of what nation a particular action or suit should be brought, and by the law of what nation it should be determined. Okay? So we can use both for our own advancement if we have a nationality and we are part of some indigenous community or nation that has the paradigm and the templates for us to do business. Too many of our groups are just nationalizing people and have no independent business template so that they can learn how to interface with the United States of America and then build the resources that are necessary to construct every institution that is necessary. So we have the paradigm for that, but we have to know our identity. So we wrote this book, The Lost Aboriginal Heritage of the So-Called Negro African American, Resolving a Historical, Political, and an Economic Identity Crisis. And what this book does is resolves that crisis. It gives a clear explanation of all 4 areas that we are discussing and then gives us the remedy for those particular things. All right, you can get this book at indigenousgovernment.org if you want the book, or just come to my Facebook page, Aboriginal Chief Ali, and we can get you that particular material. And as you can see, on the frontal piece, you have the oldest indigenous Americans here. This is on the bottom pectorals to show that the so-called Olmec Mayans, I say so-called because that was not their original name. The word Maya was first introduced by Christopher Columbus, and it meant the northern country. And he applied it to indigenous peoples. Olmec is not the original name of the people. The original name is She. They never said they were from any place but here, and this is a depiction of what they look like, the hairstyles, etc. So when you discuss Native American history and you are not discussing this, you are not discussing Native American history. You are discussing infiltration. You are discussing the rewriting of records. You are discussing things that have nothing to do with the Aboriginal races of this land or Aboriginal peoples of this land. You are discussing a conflicted history that distorts geography, placement of peoples, etc. All right, and you are listening to scholars who make no sense. All right, like Henry Louis Gates, who attempted to do DNA tests on many of our popular actors and attempted to set the framework to say that none of them had Native American genetics, when in fact he should have been testing them as the basis to determine who has the genetics of the Aboriginal peoples of the Americas. So if the peoples who are now calling themselves Native Americans on reservations want to know if they're Native or not, then they need to come and test our genetics, because our genetics and bone structures, etc., are the oldest on the land. But what they have done is they've used ordinances and codes like the Native American Graves Protection Act to stop scientists from discovering the real genetic history of ancient America, so that they can continue to attempt to hide the information from you that they are not an Aboriginal people to this particular landmass. And this book proves it through the migration and the codexes that they wrote describing their Austronesian origin. Austronesian being a genetic group that describes the origins of the people who are currently calling themselves Native Americans who are not. All right, in the sense of being the Aboriginal autochthons of this land. And that is not a slight against them for any other reason. They can continue to strive and try to be a peaceful people, but to attempt to distort history and impact my people adversely, and then to keep a racist stance on it, says that the truth just deserves to be spoken. So that is what we will do. All right? To belong to a nation or body politic affording one the protections, guarantees, security, natural and political rights retained by that group. All right? So this is our Constitution. Take a look at it. All right. This Constitution was written as a provisional constitution for the Aboriginal Republic of North America, nationals of the Aboriginal Republic of North America. All right. The government type is indigenous natural law government. We have 12 councils and several departments in each council that govern our nation. Our geographical location is North America. Our currency is the Aboriginal unit. Our motto is one nationality, one aim, one destiny. Our investment bank is ISIS Aboriginal Trust, and I'm the current presiding chief of this particular indigenous government. And we are here to help other governments form their constitutions and operate them. We're not attempting to force everyone to come within our jurisdiction. So whether you be Washita, a Mexamore Empire, or whatever you may be, we're willing to assist you at whatever we can as far as systems, paradigms, organizing, agriculture, defense and intelligence, economics and engineering, diplomacy, whatever we may help you with. All right? We're willing to share our university structure and all the things that we have done over the last 9 years so that we can assist our people, not just here in America, but all over the planet. All right? So this is one of the requirements. You have to have a flag. You have to have these particular things down in order to consider yourself a government. There are only two types of government on this land. They are the indigenous governments that were already here before the formation of the United States of America, and then you have the United States of America and the United States. All right? Here we have some general principles of international law that will help us understand the basics of how to remedy our situation. We have groups like INCOBRA that talk about reparations and other things. Suffice to say, with all due respect, they know nothing about reparations. These 28 principles that are part of this resolution adopted here, 6147 by the United Nations, gives an international standard and practice for the right to a remedy and reparation for victims of gross violations of international human rights law and serious violations of international humanitarian law. The reason why your children every February are doing book reports on Dr. Martin Luther King before he changed his mind is that they never want him to think in the realm of human rights. Because if they think in the realm of human rights, they'll begin to think self-autonomy and self-identification, and then they'll begin to say we can do it ourselves. We don't need permission. And to do that is dangerous. So we don't need to beg anybody to do anything. We can follow the standards of international law, form ourselves into the body politics that are appropriate, and then move from there. But we have to have the right ingredients. We can't do what the African Union wanted us to do, which is register a business within one of the 50 state fictions and then use that as a pretext to become a part of the African Union. You are asking us to continue to denationalize ourselves in order to participate with our brothers and sisters in international remedy, which means you need a course on international law, the entire African Union. And we're willing to give you that course. All right? The Universal Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, passed in 2007 by 144 nations, proclaims in Article 9 that indigenous peoples and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation in accordance with the traditions and customs of the community or nation concerned. No discrimination of any right may arise from the exercise of such a right. All right? So those rights are there. And that same body of law says the following: indigenous peoples and individuals have the right not to be subjected to forced assimilation or destruction of their culture. Forced assimilation is when DHS and DIFAS come and snatch your children away from single mothers, and they have no political remedy because there's no lawyers within our African American business structures and other things that can give them the right advice about what is happening. States shall provide effective mechanisms for prevention of and redress for any action which has the aim or effect of depriving them of their integrity as distinct peoples, or of their cultural values or ethnic identities. Any action which has the aim or effect of dispossessing them of their lands, territories, or resources. As we stated the other day, from 1887 to 1925, over 40 million acres were taken from free Negroes. And it's all documented. All right? And there is an international remedy to remedy that particular situation. Any form of forced population transfer which has the aim or effect of violating or undermining any of their rights. All of these prisons filled with our brothers and sisters under trumped up charges and plea agreements. These are forced population transfers created by a denationalization and genocide scheme to chemically, biochemically treat the minds of our people in order to keep us in a certain mental state so that we can continue to cycle the commercial engine of people who are carrying out eugenic programs against us. And without the right entities, without the medical entities, without the psychological entities, without the economic entities to do the research for us to see that these things are happening and that they are violations, we will remain in this cycle. So we have an answer. Any form of forced assimilation or integration. So international law is telling you you don't have to integrate. Any form of propaganda designed to promote or incite racial or ethnic discrimination directed against them. All right? It was the 2000 census that carried the term Negro, and it wasn't until we made enough racket online that they began to change it. And changed it, indeed changed it, took it off. So we need to understand that we have a right to self-autonomy and self-identification. Here are the flags, one being our international maritime flag. All right? The original flag of the Afro-Asiatics. And the next flag being the flag of Ishkel, often thought to be a Islamic flag, but it's a flag that actually has its derivation in what we call in Mexico. On the right, you see Ishkel, the ancestor of birth and midwives, holding the rabbit, sitting in a crescent. All right? So she represents the planet Venus, which makes a conjunction with Earth every 584 days and forms the ancient symbol of what we know to be the star, which some people have taken and said it represents Lucifer or Satan. It represents the conjunctions between Venus and Earth, which are very important to the concept of womanhood and the power of birth, or the symbolism of birth and rebirth. And it also represents the ancient calendar, the oldest calendar on the planet, the Manzil calendar developed by the Shi, misnamed Olmec and Mayan. So that star and crescent actually has its derivation as a symbolic, astronomical, and cultural symbol in America, and exported itself over into the Afro-Asiatic civilizations that gave rise later to what we're calling Islam. Here's the depiction of that particular calendar. This calendar was found in Koba at the Mackenzak Stele, Koba Stele 1 in the Mackenzak Stele, and there's no calendar system on Earth that is this old. We had dates going into the octillions. Octillion means a 41 followed by 27 ciphers. There's no one on Earth with a calendar this old. All right? And we called the origination of that calendar and the system of the origination of the ancestors, the Hala Kaaba. So that was the name we gave to the Creator, Hala, Hala. In America, if you want to get to look at the people themselves, here we are. All right. Once again, the bottom peck murals showing the offering of chocolate to the Ahau. The Ahau is where you get the name of the state, Ohio. And it is the land of the mounds. Ahau was the name of the kings amongst the Shi. So when you go to your tours in the various places in Mexico, Chichen Itza and other places, the people will call themselves Mayan, but they don't look like these particular people, which says that there's been birthright theft. Here, kept at the Oxford Bodleian Library, made in 1541 under Antonio Mendoza, the first viceroy of New Spain, the depiction of the original Shi as they were fighting against the invaders who were coming into Shi land, or Mexico, or what they call New Spain. So the discussion of the Moors ruling Spain has both an Eastern and a Western connotation if taken properly, even though these people did not call themselves Moors. Moors was a generic name to describe Aboriginal or black-skinned people. Here we have the finds at La Venta. These finds show carved basalt heads that are almost 80 miles from the place where the rock quarries were. So the exquisite level of sculpturing and the ability to move these things, which are tons and tons as far as weight, shows the great advanced technology of the ancient Aboriginal and black civilizations of the Americas. And these are the true indigenous peoples. The people who are standing there with their hands on it are not. In 1982, the world got its first definition within international law for the word indigenous. Indigenous communities, peoples, and nations are those which, having a historical continuity with pre-invasion and pre-colonial societies that developed on their territories, consider themselves distinct from other sectors of societies now prevailing in those territories or parts of them. They form at present non-dominant sectors of society and are determined to preserve, develop, and transmit to future generations their ancestral territories and their ethnic identity as the basis of their continued existence as peoples, in accordance with their own cultural patterns, social institutions, and legal system. On an individual basis, an indigenous person is one who belongs to one of these populations through self-identification. Self-identification means that you come to that indigenous nation and you advance yourself to become a national of it, and by doing so, you are now declared to have a nationality that is within the just sanguineous bloodlines and just solely rights of your ancestors. All right? This preserves for these communities the sovereign right and power to decide who belongs to them without external influence. So this whole history of the native peoples and indigenous peoples of the Americas has been completely twisted. And because it's been completely twisted, the lawful benefits of your own constitution and the constitutional benefits within the United States of America, Mexico, Canada, and the other islands are not afforded to you because you do not know how to classify yourself in regards to the common language, the modern language, which would describe you as far as your just sanguineous and just solely bloodline and soil rights. A classic example of this is when we go to the only definition given for Indians in a legal dictionary. On page 912 of Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, we get the definition for Indians. And the definition is the Aboriginal inhabitants of North America. And a case where this language was first spoken, Frazee versus Spokane County in Washington, the state of Washington, was given. And going further, Corpus Juris Secundum, which is the body of law for American jurisprudence, gives the definition Indians is the name given by European discoverers of America to its Aboriginal inhabitants. So Indians is what's called a misnomer. It is the English version of Indios. All right? Indios was the name given to Negroes de Terra. Negroes de Terra were disassociated from Negroes de Guinea or Guinea, as Guinea was the name given to Africa. So Negroes de Guinea were the Negroes in Africa, and Negroes de Terra were the Negroes in the New World. But they were neither Negroes nor were they Indians. They were just the Aboriginal inhabitants of the land under their various names. All right? Corpus Juris Secundum goes on to say, when used in a statute without any other limitation, the term has been said to include members of the Aboriginal race, whether now sustaining tribal relations or otherwise. So whether you have tribal relations, whether you're part of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, you are still considered members of the Aboriginal race. And if you have a socio-political structure that you are part of, you are to be respected for that nation and nation state that you are a part of. And we need to understand that we have our right to have all of our resources within that. From registering of cars and vehicles to IDs to every other thing. Formation of businesses, schools, whatever you may want to think of. Investment circles and all types of other agencies, etc. All of that wealth is supposed to stay within our nation, in our community. So when we show you these particular things, We know them. Government Employee ID. This is my non-tax liability, tax exempt government ID. Aboriginal Republic of North America. We formed the Aboriginal Cherokee Choctaw Incorporated entity to ensure that as free persons who were enslaved or captured by people who began to call themselves that those particular treaties that were made in 1866 could secure our rights. But the original name and oldest name is She, Amaru. We use the U.S. Department of State Federal Authentication Number because that particular instrument that we have was sent to the Department of State to give them knowledge of our plebiscite. It was not to give us authority from them in any way because we derive our authority from ourselves. It was to make a communication so at no former or date afterwards would they classify us under any other thing other than an indigenous government, insurgents, or whatever they like to classify people as. All right? So we have our own identifications. We have our own driver's license and international driver's license. We have our own vehicle registration system. All of these things are to keep wealth inside of our community. This is what you're stuck under. When you are not operating within your own jurisdiction, you're stuck under notes, securities, and bonds, which are administrated through something called a Uniform Commercial Code, which has become the only other body of uniform ordinances besides the Constitution itself. So the federal Constitution and the UCC apply in all the states. Nothing else applies in all the states except treaties and international law. The UCP, Uniform Customs and Practice for Documentary Credits, is the UCC on an international level. And all of the major corporations that are part of the ones that enslave you are part of this International Chamber of Commerce that rules the world through contracts or quasi-contracts. And how they do it in your state is they use this particular article from the various articles or statutes that are in your state. Every state with a state fiction within the United States has passed the Uniform Commercial Code to become a part of their statutes. And under Article 3, Section 202, they use negotiation and through your ignorance as the means to continue to denationalize you and disempower you economically. This quote, which was written by the legislature of each one of the 50 states that you interface with, says negotiation is effective. It does not say it's lawful. It says it's effective, even if obtained one from an infant. So they start by negotiating with your mother as a trustee for you, and they make quasi-contracts with you as an infant to denationalize you and secure you as their collateralized property and goods. Now, without your own affidavits of birth or manifestation, then you are left to the mercy of agencies and other entities. A corporation exceeding its powers. Any corporation that's acting on you, if you have a true nationality that is in your indigenous socio-political community or nation, is a corporation exceeding its powers. A person without capacity, like a judge who's making determinations against you when they are doing so based on a performance bond instead of their oath of office, by fraud, duress, or mistake, or in breach of duty, or as part of an illegal transaction. All of these things are happening to you. So they start out negotiating with you, and because they know you can't negotiate because you don't have the knowledge, then they know you're not reading or you're not well read in law because you haven't had any civics classes, and the ones that you are getting from various quacks out here is trying to get you into something that you don't even need to be a part of. So an example of that negotiation is when you go get a job. You'll look at the job and not know that you're supposed to be on that job retaining all of the wealth that you are building on that job. That you should not be using false instruments that denationalize you to get hired. The first thing that's on the I-9 form, which every human resource manager fills out for you after they get your ID and your application, is an anti-discrimination notice. And it tells you it is illegal to discriminate against any work authorized individual in hiring, discharge, recruitment, or referral for a fee, or in the employment eligibility verification process based on that individual's citizenship status, immigration status, or national origin. If everybody had the same national origin and citizenship status, then this would not need to be here. Check out what they say. Employers cannot specify which documents they will accept from an employee. So they tell you you have to give them your driver's license, and if you give them something from another jurisdiction, they look at it strange and say, we don't know what this is. Yet, you are told that you cannot specify which documents they will accept because different people have different national origins and nationalities and citizenship on this land. So if they come with anything indigenous, they're supposed to accept it. All right? The refusal to hire an individual because of the documentation presented has a future expiration date may also constitute illegal discrimination. So this form is issued by the Department of Homeland Security and the USCIS, and the first thing that's on the form is an anti-discrimination notice. The next thing that's on the form is that which is telling you that the Social Security number or the offering of it is voluntary. Provide your 9-digit Social Security number. Providing your Social Security number is voluntary. However, if your employer participates in E-Verify, you must provide the Social Security number. E-Verify is done to check for terrorists and all types of other things when you are working for the federal government or in law enforcement, etc. But the providing of your Social Security number in all other circumstances is voluntary, yet you will be told that it's mandatory. That is a form of discrimination and can give rise to a lawsuit for tort injuries and all types of other things. We need to know what is available to us. We need to know that you can fill out the form as a non-citizen national, not as a citizen. You are not and never have been a citizen of the United States, and when they offered you the 14th Amendment, that fake citizenship, you were never to do any affidavit saying that you actually accepted that, because you didn't. You've been a legal fiction since you were born, denationalized, and the only way you can get out of it is joining some indigenous government that can properly give you back what you lost. They tell you list of acceptable documents, all right? And you're told you have to give these particular documents, but never are you told that you can look down in number 8 and number 5 and use native documents from your own jurisdiction. School documents from your own Aboriginal universities or elementaries or whatever schools you form. All right? We need to know these things. All right? Form W4. All of this discussion is about ways that you can preserve money. They'll give you this form, right? And never tell you you can fill out exempt. And if you fill out exempt, they tell you you can't fill out exempt, but why is exempt on the form? Then they don't tell you that it's an employee's withholding allowance certificate, not employer withholding allowance certificate. Employees is singular possessive of the employee who is allowing for the withholding by this certificate. It's negotiation. It is not mandatory. You can put exempt and continue on with the proper forms. And if you couldn't, there would not be any exempt on the form. Same thing for W9. What does it say right here? I am not subject to backup withholding because I am exempt from backup withholding. All right? How can you be exempt? If it's on the form, somebody can be exempt. How are they exempt? It's how they form the business. So we have the way. 72 hours, we can get you an exempt entity. If you go to our Facebook page or you inbox me, I'll send you that application so you can get it right back to me. And then you can go to the website, make the payment, and start out your exempt business and move forward with all of the benefits that apply. This is the form that you should be using, a W-8 bin, when you're interfacing with them, because it certifies you in your indigenous capacity as a non-citizen who is engaging in some type of business and getting paid. And you are allowed to place at the bottom in number 10 the treaty articles that will exonerate you from the specific taxes. So we have that paradigm. And we can continue to form indigenous businesses, and then by forming those businesses, all right, and rooting them in the tax exempt clauses, whether they be ecclesiastical, as here, or non-ecclesiastical, trusts, whatever it may be, we can afford you the right to those exemptions. You do not have to get permission from the IRS to be exempt. They're telling you here that these organizations are automatically exempt if they meet the requirements of 501c3. In order to meet the requirements of 501c3, all you have to do is state that in your articles when you form the business. All right? You don't have to file taxes at the end of the year or information returns. And this is our plan. If we can get 1% of our people to save on sales tax and property tax annually, $5K, then we can save our people $3 billion and create a fund so that we can build things all across this nation. That's what we can do right now. That's what we are doing right now. We don't have to wait. If we get 10% of our people, we can create a $30 billion fund to go all across this country and build schools and all the institutions and health institutions that are specifically tailored towards the genetics of indigenous people. We can end the IRS's reign over indigenous people through teaching them how to contract properly. Your leaders are afraid. They're not going to help you. You will be enslaved another 6,000 years if you do not act. And why won't you act? There's nothing stopping you from acting except having the knowledge. So we can use our ISIS Aboriginal law firms to set up tax exempt entities, notarize and authenticate documents, do EIN verifications, and contract with stores for exemption and non-tax liability. We do this through self-identification, self-determination, and self-interest. We can show you in your state law parties that are excluded from the transactions that apply to property taxes. Here you have it. This is just PA law. A transfer to a trustee or ordinary trust as provided in 91-156. A transfer from a trustee of an ordinary trust. A transfer which merely confirms the appointment of a successor trustee. All of these provide for exemption. All right? So on a property that was worth $159,000, I would have ended up paying $15,000, or this person would have ended up paying $15,000 to make a transfer of this property. But you can see the state tax paid is $0. $0. All right, because we know what we're doing. All right, so when we don't know what we're doing, we become the slaves to 21 CEOs that control the Federal Reserve open market operations and the discount window. They purchase over 95% of all government debt and bonds, and they control the mortgage market, the energy market, the technology market, the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the food industry, and your municipality, county, borough, state, and federal corporations. They control all of that. What we're saying is that we can give you a template so that you can become an owner and develop your own mortgage, energy, technology, military, food, and all other jurisdictional markets. All right, but you can't do it under this. This is what you're under right now, the 14th Amendment passed in 1868, and you got to come out of it because it makes you a subject. All right, it makes you a subject. And if you don't think you're a subject, as a member of this Supreme Court case proves it, as a member of a corporation, the government never exercises its sovereignty. As a member of a corporation, a government never exercises its sovereignty. It acts merely as a corporator, and further, that when the government becomes a partner in any trading company, it divests itself so far as concerns the transactions of that company of its sovereign character and take that of a private citizen. So what happens when the House of Representatives of the United States is traded as the Office of Law Revision Counsel? And they have a Dun & Bradstreet portfolio that shows that they are a company. Not that they have a company, that they are a company. So if the House of Representatives is a company, and we use this Supreme Court case law against them, then we can with 100% accuracy say that they have divested themselves of their sovereignty. And since 1974, the Office of Law Revision Counsel, a private law firm, has written every statute in the United States of America. So what are the judges and all these people actually doing who are using these particular codes and statutes? They are committing sedition and treason. And they are doing so and blinding the peoples of the United States of America, indigenous and non-indigenous, who are in this space, of their rights and their responsibilities based on true government. And they have you running a rat race to run to the IRS to get some money at the end of the year, when if you had your sense, you could have money all year long. You could have wealth all year long. You could have resources and agriculture all year long. Doyle versus Mitchell, an examiner of these and other provisions of the 16th Amendment make it plain that the legislative purpose was not to tax property as such, or the mere conversion of property, but to tax the conduct of business of corporations organized for profit upon the gainful returns from their business operations. With that case, the Supreme Court has just declared everybody who is running to get their little tax money from their W-4s and W-2s to be corporations. All right? So we need to understand that these 21 companies are your slave masters. The CEOs, their children, they don't live the lifestyle that you live. They live this lifestyle that you used to live as a people. And they're not interested in anything but continuing to make quasi-contracts with officials in government to banish your sovereignty as a people. And I'm not mad at them for being industrious. I'm just saying that our people need a different way if we're going to solve problems amongst ourselves. And continuing to make quasi-contracts with these entities is not going to happen. It's not going to, provide what you need. To give you a clear understanding of it, this is a bond from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and it states the bonds will be issued only in book entry form, issued initially registered in the name of Seed & Company. Seed & Company is a dummy corporation called the New York Stock Exchange Euronext. They control 40% of the world's wealth, and they took the template from slavery and exported it to every country on the planet and now rule the world. So if you can figure out how to unlock it here, you can unlock it everywhere, because that template was exported everywhere. Seed & Company is the nominee for the Depository Trust Company, which acts as the securities depository. The DTC is holding all of the collateralized wealth of the people, indigenous and non-indigenous. If you want it back, you have to figure out how to get it back. Wells Fargo Bank National Association is the loan and transfer agent for the bonds. So if you go to the DMV and you fill out an application for a license and you pay that money, what they don't tell you is they endorse that particular instrument and turn it over to Wells Fargo. If you go and pay a traffic ticket at the Philadelphia Traffic Court, what you don't realize is that you're not paying the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you're paying Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo will give the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania a blank check to operate all of its services for 1 to 5 years, and everything is paid for in advance. The only thing they require as a bondholder and a loan and transfer agent with the other bondholders and vendors is for the Commonwealth and the city to set up programs to rape and rob their people. So thus you have a Philadelphia Parking Authority, the most criminal organization in the city, and all types of other entities that are meant to rob the people of everything in order to pay back bondholders. And they tell you right on the face of the bond right here, the bonds are the direct and general obligations of the Commonwealth, and the full faith and credit of the Commonwealth are pledged for the payment of principal and of interest on the bonds. The full faith and credit of the Commonwealth is you, the people. So instead of getting exemptions They got you paying debt with interest. All right? And you could be right here, like me, using tax exempt status or non-tax liability status. Imagine all of our children going to school and buying their supplies from Staples, Kmart, Walmart under tax exemption and saving millions and billions of dollars annually. We can do that. Imagine these fake entities who are charging you on these note securities and bonds. This was one that they tried to charge me for $43,000. You can see the investigation results deleted. All right. So Sally Mae and all the other Mays and Macs are a bunch of liars, and we have to understand their securitization schematics and fraud, and then get from under it so we can save our resources. And deal with Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. So when they give you debts like this, you do this. Delete it. $1,000 disappears with one affidavit. This is what we're trying to teach the people. All right? You got to get it. You got to get it. If you don't get it, you're not going to get it. You can use the FTC affidavit when you learn our financial recovery process and procedure. You can use a notary and get rid of those particular fictitious debts. They're debts to fictions, and these particular fictions are not even the holders in due course of the original instruments. They don't even have the contract. All right? Fiction of law, something known to be false is assumed to be true. Fictitious, founded on a fiction, having the character of a fiction, pretended, counterfeit, feigned, imaginary, not real, false, not genuine, non-existent. Bill alleging that amount of mortgage sought to be canceled was fictitious, held to allege that mortgage was without consideration, arbitrarily invented and set up to accomplish an ulterior object. Fictitious action, an action brought for the sole purpose of obtaining the opinion of the court on a point of law, not for the settlement of any actual controversy between the parties. Fictitious name, a counterfeit, fame, or pretended name taken by a person differing in some essential particular from his true name. All right? So these are all the fictions that are around you. All right? Fictitious plaintiff, a person appearing in the writ or record as the plaintiff in a suit, but in reality does not exist, or who is ignorant of the suit and of the use of his name in it. It is a contempt of court to sue in the name of a fictitious party. So when you see state of Pennsylvania, state of New York versus, don't you know that's a fictitious plaintiff? We need to learn all of these particular things so that we can make a difference in how we're operating. We need to know how to go to a Dun & Bradstreet and set up a Dun & Bradstreet account. We can walk you through those particular processes and procedures so that you can use credit, business credit, instead of individual credit. Which means you can take your EIN number once you establish a Dun & Bradstreet number and go and rent a car and do everything else you need to do. You can take your DUNS number and share it with someone else who has a DUNS number as a vendor and raise up your business credit score. This is how big businesses do it. You need to learn how to do it. All right, exemption improved for real estate transfer taxes. Court cases dismissed. All right, other cases. So everywhere we have a situation or scenario where someone is taking money from us, economically we want to take it back. And we're going to do that by registering the appropriate entity so that you can learn how you should be protecting yourself. All right? Let's see if we can change the screen share. So that was a rewind of the other day's lecture. I'm not going to belabor the points. There's an extensive part of this that we've done. If you contact us once again, we're willing to help you with those particular things as far as setup is concerned of business. We'll do that in a very short time period. So you can contact me. See if we can get this screen share going. You can contact me at any time right here. All right. You can text me. I need a business EIN certification. You can send me an email. Either way, I'll forward you the business application. And I believe there's a download on the website, www.indigenousgovernment.org. If there's a need for an update on that, we'll update that this evening. And you can contact us for this particular operation. There's much more that we can break down on this, but this is just about an hour of a presentation we want to provide to the audience on YouTube so that you can begin to study. Go back and look at the slides and study everything that I said. Study the terminology, take a look at it, and become more financially aware of what's going on around you. There are lots of things that you can do. You can take these services, learn these services, and become an entrepreneur. We have several Aboriginal jurists that do so. So all we're saying is that we have to take advantage of these things and take a different approach with our methodologies for business. There's an international template and there's a domestic template for us to do business a lot better, and we need to strive to do that. All right? So I'm not going to belabor any points. Let's see if we have any questions. If we have no questions, at least I can't see those now. I'm going to play with this a little bit more because I have a lecture that I'm going to do next week on the origins of race. And after that, I'm doing another lecture on history and linguistics the following week. So by then, I'll be much more proficient. Hopefully, everyone was able to see the slides tonight, and you didn't get confused on anything that I said. Take a look at what we said tonight. Do your research. Stay up. Protect your family, and we will be back with you next week, and we'll place our information on our Aboriginal Network.ning.com. We'll place it on Facebook, all the social media. We'll also have it on YouTube so you'll know when the next live lecture is. Again, if you need to contact me, you have my email there, amaruxiali@gmail.com. Peace to the family. Mm-hmm.